Back in 2018, the US economy was going through a historic period where there were more job openings than unemployed people. The golden age environment lasted a whole 24 months until a worldwide pandemic ended the Great Party. The US economy shut down in March of 2020, resulting in some of the worst economic numbers in history. There were a record 18.5 million more unemployed than there were job openings. Nearly 18 months later, the situation had once again flipped. According to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, the number of unemployed employees had dropped to 8.7 million, down sharply from 9.5 million in June, and the lowest since March of 2020. This to many people sounds like a miracle recovery, but dig a little deeper and you'll find some suspicious activity that is making economists panic. In this video, we answered the great labor question: why does nobody want to work? This question may come across as ridiculous to some, but clear evidence is emerging that suggests a severe labor shortage is engulfing the United States. Small businesses are reporting wild stories that confirm this as fact. Take for an example Aiden Walsh, who claimed on CNBC that a business in Connecticut recently scheduled 41 interviews and only got one person to show up. That is a 2% conversion rate and shows you the extreme difficulty many in the service industry are facing when it comes to getting labor. Take a listen to this conversation earlier in the week.
We set up interviews and schedule people to come in, but when people are just not showing up to the interviews. And it's not just us. We see it and hear it from other retailers. Even mall management up in Connecticut told us the same story. They had scheduled 47 interviews and one person showed up. So it seems to be an ongoing thing.
I think one of the challenges that you mentioned is that you're scheduling interviews. It seems like people say they're going to show up, but then they're not. So in other words, you almost don't know week to week whether you're actually able to recruit workers or not. And what other options do you have? I mean, is raising pay sort of the only recourse? And if so, by how much?
Yeah, you see, you're in a catch-22. If you raise pay, how much can you afford? Look at us as a small retailer. If somebody is getting a premium of $300 a week over what you were paying them, for a small retailer to make up that, let's say 20, 30, 40% raise in what you were paying, it's not sustainable. And even if in the short term you can do it, what's going to happen? You're either going to be forced to raise your prices, and that gets back into the whole inflation issue, or you're going to have to, after a time, bring the rate of your pay down, which isn't going to work either.
This problem is not limited to just small businesses either. Many of the nation's largest companies are facing labor shortages that are forcing businesses to adapt and rethink their entire operational strategy. Take, for example, Spirit Airlines, which in my opinion is facing a crisis that is heavily underreported, something that could be a massive deal. If you are not aware, Spirit, a famous budget airline here in the United States, canceled more than 1,500 flights in a multi-day operational meltdown, which they blamed on a wide array of factors, including weather, technology failure, and staffing shortages. It's widely reported that over 60% of its operation was down, leaving thousands of passengers stranded, some for days. While the company blamed the meltdown due to many factors, I believe it's centered around the fact that Spirit cannot find enough workers to work. Sure, things are smooth when all is well, but as I'm about to explain, one failure and this entire house of cards comes down, leading to a looping chain of delays and operational malfunctions. Unlike other airlines like Delta and American, Spirit usually flies their routes only once per day. This business model leaves them exposed to a major flaw. You see, when American Airlines delays a flight, or for whatever reason stops working, there are usually 3 or 4 more flights that day, which can help offload some of the pressure faced by passengers. You can shuffle people around, and with special arrangements with other major airlines like Delta, American is able to deal with a mishap better because they have the flight flexibility to move passengers easily. Spirit, on the other hand, is left in panic mode. A major storm that cripples the hub leads to dozens of delays, which forces the company to move staff around and attempt to get passengers to their destinations. But with routes only offered once per day, this task becomes incredibly difficult. And the web of complexity needed to shuffle staff, passengers, and pilots becomes entangled, leaving Spirit with a massive operational meltdown. This entire situation is made even more complex when limited staff numbers leave the planning departments with few emergency options.
A lot of passengers are fed up with Spirit Airlines. For the sixth straight day, it's canceled hundreds of flights, leaving customers stranded or forced to pay more on other airlines. So what does Spirit CEO have to say? Here's CBS's Errol Barnett.
This has not been our finest hour.
Spirit Airlines CEO Ted Christie told us his company's week-long meltdown stemmed from pandemic staffing, weather, and technical issues.
We've been in this line for 6 hours. People been here 9 hours.
But it's not just Spirit. Flight delays have plagued the airline industry all summer, no pun intended, and its labor shortage is well documented even before the Spirit ordeal. Articles written by the New York Times outlined the problems even back in June. It seems that nobody wants to work, and the repercussions for the economy could be severe. This issue won't be the last, and where this is headed is a question nobody seems to be answering, afraid of what the answers could be. Take a listen to AEI's Arthur Brooks try to explain the situation on CNBC.
So there's something keeping people home. You think there's something to the benefit story, don't you, Arthur?
Yeah, for sure. And the reason is because the surveys they've done of small business owners, restaurants, for example, the food service workers, retail workers, pretty clear what they've been saying is that it's really not worth it going back to work under the current circumstances. I'm not saying that people are taking advantage. They're just making rational decisions. You know, when you have relatively generous unemployment benefits, people are going to avail themselves of those benefits. If they're at home, they're taking care of their families, is what they would like to do more until or unless small businesses, restaurants, retail establishments start bidding up the wages.
He said a lot there, but his analysis leaves many, including myself, skeptical. First, you have to understand that the interview I just showed was conducted on May 17th, 2021. We are now almost halfway done with August, and the shortages seem to be only getting worse. The economy is supposedly, according to the stock market, flourishing, but people are simply refusing to jump on jobs that have never paid more. You could try to blame unemployment benefits, but that extra money ended in almost 26 states who chose to cut Biden's extra $300 check way back in mid-June. For all others, unemployment benefits are supposed to be ending in September, which is right around the corner. In my opinion, the answer is different this time around. Employers are simply not paying enough. Inflation is rapidly rising, and wages are lagging behind. These wages are likely going to rapidly rise, and with that situation comes another series of deep problems. Employers thinning margins will force prices upwards, leading to even more severe inflation. The results will put the Federal Reserve in a serious dilemma. The winter of 2021 will be a wild time for the markets. Thank you guys for watching. As always, please make sure you hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed. Also, if you're thinking about diversifying some of your net worth into crypto, please consider using my affiliate link for BlockFi below. I've been using the service for almost 3 months now, and I've earned some pretty serious interest on top of some crypto gains.